and see what's out there. When Peter, writing there in 1 Peter chapter 5, dealing with so many things that are going on. He was an elder in the church, he was a prophet, he was a preacher, he was all these different things, and saw so many different aspects of Christianity from a first-hand perspective and also through the eyes of others. They can understand there, of understanding, looking out and seeing what's in front of us. And understand that looking out in front of us and seeing the things that are there, and knowing that there is a peace that's in front of us. When, especially verse 7, it says, casting all your care upon Him, for He cares for us. Sometimes that word is translated, the first care anyway, as anxiety. I find that interesting with anxiety issues we have so much of that we know of more today. I think they've always been around. But there's an anxiety is there. That's why I could say in verse 6, we could humble ourselves before the mighty hand of God. Now listen to what he says, that He will or shall exalt us in due time. I'm afraid sometimes as human beings, we switch that, don't we? We want to exalt ourselves and think maybe later on everything will be great too. But we humble ourselves before that mighty hand of God. Notice he's not using anything flippantly here, mighty hand of God, because it is. And we humble ourselves on the mighty hand of God, He's going to exalt us in due time. We're going to have our name going through that tunnel back here. We're going to have our name etched on one of those little statues out there as well. It's going to last far longer than what a piece of stone can last in the middle of Greece. It's going to last for eternity from that. And he shows that vision through those things and understanding about the care about it. And if you read on verse 8, we understand fully what he's talking about, because the devil, as that roaring lion, still walks about. And listen to what he does. Listen to his job. Seeking whom he may devour. Not come by and scratch. Not give a little purr. But whom he may devour. He wants to devour our souls, folks. You know, one way I can prevent that, I can humble myself before the mighty hand of God. I can cast the cares and anxieties of this world upon God. Why? Because God cares about me. Which makes me not the underdog. True? In Revelation 22, I have it on the screen for you there. There are many passages we could study, but this one stuck out about Jesus was returning, and he said, I have my reward in my hand. My reward. It's interesting how that's worded there. My is capitalized in my Bible. Talking to His personal deity. Jesus Christ is going to give a reward. I have, and I'm going to give everyone accordingly, the ones who need it, the ones who've deserved it, the ones who survived this massacre of persecution by Rome, ones who have survived the hardships of living the Christian life in the first century, and by application to those of us today. Matter of fact, Paul says, when you go back in 2 Timothy chapter 4, that especially in verses 6 through 8, talking about basically he's giving his own eulogy. I always found interesting, giving his own eulogy, but he says, it's the crown of life that the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give to me in that day, and not to me only, verse 8, but unto all them also who love His appearing. And that's what we're seeing here. The victor's crown. I mentioned Olympia, Greece, a moment ago, and I mentioned the little statues that stood outside the area there, where the Olympics would take place and other races would take place, and you'd see all those things. But you know what else they'd have? And you could see it around some of those trees around the area. Apparently they just whacked them off and made crowns a lot of times there for victors of certain individual events. And they would take these evergreens of different sorts and they'd wrap them up and they'd set that crown on their head. But the crown that's promised in the Greek and in the English both in the New Testament for the faithful child of God, James 1:12, Revelation 2 and verse 10, other places the word is used. It refers to it could be a diadema, an imperishable crown, gold and diamonds and beautiful. Matter of fact, and back in James 2 and other places, or James 1, it's referred to that does not perish. Because those wreaths they would make of evergreens, different ones they would use, perished within a day or so. Just didn't last. But God has promised something grander than that. Anyone still think they're an underdog? Fess up now. I'm not going to let you leave. Well, now you're not going to fess up at all, are you? Hungry, right? We're not, folks. We are part of the top tier. We are the top tier of Jesus Christ. He's the victor. He's the one who came. He's the one that overcame. They thought he was an underdog too. We'll just kill him and fix everything. And fell right into God's plan. That's what you get when you try to outsmart God. It backfires on you. Folks, we are part of the top tier, the top dog, whatever you want to call it. But we are part of the victors. The ones who win. The ones who endure. While everything else is falling down and all the world falls down around it, Christianity stands true. Because we believe in the truth and nothing else. If you're here and you're not a child of God, folks, I want to encourage you with every fiber of my being to become a child of God. To not walk out the doors today and think, well, maybe another day I'll have a chance to get my name. Maybe one more day I'll be able to get up and line up in that race and finish that race. Maybe one more day. Because we're not promised that. What we're promised is heaven from our obedience. And obedience needs to be as soon as we can do it. If you're not a Christian, folks, we want to encourage you to become one. Talk to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. Maybe you are. But you know what folks in those races could do, in those Grecian races years ago? They could fall down. They could quit. They could break a limb. Something could happen. Or they could just sometimes, and it happened, give up. That was a long ways to run. And sometimes just give up. Because there were too many obstacles to finish the race and they would just go back home. Folks, if you don't finish this race, you're not going home at all. It's the Christian race and it's ours. If you have need, why don't you come while we stand and sing?